your entire city is built on a fault. Yay for us. Thank you. So I have a cute little cartoon and it says, if your house is built on a crack, it's your fault. Not really. Your house is built on a crack. So be prepared for what some of that shaking means when you're looking at things for your home. So we won't go through every single one of the hazards, but just know that that's something that you can look at on the USGS site. So I mentioned some of the disasters and possible things that you would be concerned about doing. And there's some listed here. Can you guys think of others that you would add, maybe anything specific to Lindon?
Yeah, we have, like the last time we had the rain event, we have a lot of hillside homes and it makes us prone to the basement flood.
Okay. Very, well, not very good, but thank you for the information. Yeah, I wondered as I looked at the topography of your area, if you get flooding coming out of the mountains. I mean, it looks like you should, but then when I look at the maps, it's like, no, not really. So for whatever reason, that doesn't seem to be a big issue.
We actually have a huge hazard for that, but here's what happens. It actually goes in the ground. We had some floods during a rain event and I was concerned and we went up and I thought this has got to end up being flooded, but they literally come down and disappear in the substrate.
That is what all the hazard maps are showing me.
Yeah, it's nuts.
Is that it's not a super huge issue for you. And then I thought, well, landslides have got to be huge. This is not the hillside that's near where I live, where everything, like point of the mountain where everything's sand and keeps coming down, right? This is a whole different
Shale.
Yeah, it's a different I can't think of the word that I want, but it's a different kind of ground, and so you're not having the same issues that we would in other places. So all of that's fantastic. Fire hazard is always going to be a bit of an issue with wildfires living this close.
Animals, yeah, deer all over this morning when I left.
Yeah.
Like 45.
We got an alert this week that there was a cougar in the creek near us, and I'm like so far away from anywhere a cougar should be, but they'll follow paths and water and streams all the way down right in. So animals are a big one too. So this is a cool little thing on the church's website, and you can go in and click and check. Is it going to interrupt with my food and clothing, this particular disaster? Physical safety, shelter and clothing, church meeting houses and properties, communications. So the earthquake, it's going to take all of it. Hazmat could take all of it if you have to leave the house, right? But something like a pandemic, well, you still have your home and you still have your clothing. You have access to the food that's already in your house. So it's going to be hit and miss whether it affects it or not. But at the bottom, it's going to add up all of these things. And then I always go down and add this direction. So I know what things are going to affect my family the most. And I can go in and focus on those things first. So this just helps me to prioritize. So as a ward, you would do this, as a state, you would do this, but also as families, you can go through this as part of your process and planning, and it helps.
How do you get that?
It's on the church's website under temporal preparedness. This is as well, this is the area temporal preparedness guide, and it's an actual workbook for our entire area. Oops, that is not what I meant to do. Let me escape for just a second and see if I can find. There it is. Okay, that's pretty small, maybe harder to see, but as you go through it, it's an actual workbook that you can work through with your family as part of making a family plan. And it covers a whole lot of different areas, and it has good resources in it as well. So it's going to refer you to places like Red Cross, Be Ready Utah. This one's a great one. Salt Lake County Health Department also has some great things. And yes, it's Salt Lake County Health Department, but Utah County either has the same thing or you can use Salt Lake County. So this is a great little book when it comes to planning as well. It breaks down the different disasters, communication as part of a plan, food storage. It kind of goes through all of it, and it can just be downloaded and printed. So to find it though, this is the trick. It's hard to find on the church website, but if you Google the title of it, here we go. Utah Area Temporal Preparedness Guide, it will pull up. let's go to water. Okay, water storage. For about 15 years, they told us when we taught water storage that clean water, clean container doesn't have to be rotated. And now they've come back and said, our water's not as clean as we thought it was, and your containers probably aren't either. So please remember, if you've stored water and it's been a couple of years, that it may be time to swap that water out. Dump it in your gardens. Use it for drinking water for animals. But don't just let the water sit. And worst of all, if you've spent the time and money to get those giant blue barrels brought to your house and they're sitting there empty, this is my face, right? Don't do that. I can't tell you how many times I hear from someone, oh yeah, we've got them, we just haven't filled them yet. So those have been empty in your garage since I did a bulk buy on them 8 years ago. It doesn't help. Empty ones don't help. Yes.
There's a additive, it's oxygen basically, that you can put to the water and it'll get you full 5 years.
It'll get some more time out of it for you, but those containers themselves will still, even with those additives in it, the water's clean, but the container may not be. And so as often as you can, but you will get more time out of those little bottles of it. You can get them at any prepper store or on Amazon as well. Then you have to store those too, though. And remember, they expire quickly. So that's more of what you're rotating at that point. And regular bleach works too. So we're gonna look a little more at that. So a minimum of 2 gallons per person per day. So that is more than enough to drink. That is enough for drinking, cooking, and washing. Here is a great little website. It's the Ready Store. It's not an advertisement for them, but they have a great calculator. So they have a water storage calculator here, and it breaks it down by what you need for cooking. And what you need, here, I'll go back to the top so you can see it says Ready Store. So cooking, washing, and drinking. And then at the bottom, when you scroll down, it says, when did you last check your water storage? And then down here you can select, I just want to know how much for drinking, or I just want to know how much for washing or cooking. So a family, how many are in your family?
Right now, just me and my husband.
Okay, just 2 of you at home right now, and maybe you want 3 months supply. When we speak with our city emergency manager, a large scale earthquake, large scale disaster, we're looking at easily 2 to 3 weeks before they even have hope of getting water out to different neighborhoods to start refilling what you've got. So he encourages months of water supply in our area versus weeks. So this is 3 months of water for 2 of you would be 180 gallons of water.
Is it 50 gallons in the blue barrel?
Those blue barrels are 55 gallons typically. And you can get the great big blue ones that are like 200, but you don't need quite that much. Okay, so that's just kind of, I take all of those, the washing, cooking, cleaning, combine it to come to that 2 gallon amount. Hey, don't store all your water in a 55 gallon barrel, because if you have to leave home and I see you rolling that thing down the street, I'll laugh. Even in a disaster moment, I might laugh when I see that. So making sure that you have water in a lot of different types of storage containers, water bottles, water bricks, or gallon storage. Have you seen the water bricks? They look like giant Legos and they snap together, but you can fill each one with about 5 gallons of water. Does anyone know how much a gallon of water weighs?
8.24.
Exactly, over 8 pounds. So just this water brick, this part should still be something you could carry and could move should you need to. Storage drums, you're not moving those. And then we have water purifiers, such as like Berkeys. Do you guys know what Berkeys are? They're big stainless steel. They can sit out on the kitchen counter. They can go camping with you. You can get little ones, but they're water filtration systems that filter out all the really icky stuff. Like pond water, go ahead, dump it in the top. By the time it gets through, you're going to be okay. And then I accidentally put bleach here, didn't need to, but even like the straws, what are they called? Life straws. The life straws, that's what a Berkey filter is, but it's for like a large crowd. So gravity fed purification, and then chemical purification would be bleach. That's one example. There are other things that you can use to purify using chemicals, but that's a little more personal preference. I did have someone say, I found bleach on sale, everybody go get it to purify your water. She had a picture of all the bleach she bought, and it's like floral scented. Well, just buy bleach, don't buy floral scented bleach. And there are good bleaches for this and bad bleaches for this. So make sure that you're reading up on what you need.
Do you know what the ratio per gallon is for typical bleach?
I believe it's at 1 teaspoon per gallon and stirred in and then to let it air out.
I've heard that, but it seems like a lot. Bleach is really poisonous. I mean, it's,
This is why I don't prefer the chemical
yeah,
method.
right?
I prefer the filtration method, but worst case scenario, that's what's recommended. Hey, 72 hours of food and supplies. The new standard issued by the state is 96 hours. But I left
Oh,
this
really?
slide in so I remember to tell you that. So they're saying now we're not getting to you in 72 hours. You're gonna be on your own at that point still. And so we'd really like you to go to the 96 hours of supplies. These are some suggestions for emergency kits, some places that have great little lists, and items. This, your family disaster plan, this little handout, I tried to order them for you and the county said they're about 8 weeks out on getting any more out, so I don't have them for you. But you can get them and they are online at Salt Lake County Health Department. It's your family disaster plan. And in it, there's some great suggestions on things that you should put in it. We recently went through ours, and even though this is what I do as a calling, we still found some like size 4 shorts in my son's kit, or his emergency kit. My son is 21 and on his mission. So I don't know how that one slipped through. I'm wondering if we have another bag for him that he's just like moved somewhere, but we did find a bag with his things in it that definitely won't fit. It definitely won't fit. One thing that's helped a lot recently with the emergency kits is everybody's access to freeze dryers. Because when you buy these meals online or you buy them from camp or survival stores and you get these meals, they may be okay to eat. They may not taste fantastic, but if you're hungry, you're gonna eat them. The nice thing about them is they're always lightweight. The negative thing about them is often the taste, but even more so, the fact that you've got to carry enough water with you to rehydrate them. So they're not always the easy option versus a canned food item in a bag. So just some things to consider when you consider talking about the weight of your bag. Maybe it's gonna be easier to have water that you can pull behind you this way and food that needs to be rehydrated than it is both things. So a few things, preparedness is a very personal business, but these are just some suggestions. The freeze-dried foods are nice as well because you can freeze-dry the meals that your kids, especially if you've got littles, that you know they're willing to eat, because you need to make sure your children are eating. And if the food is gross or weird or different, we all know that they may. This is just a page on preparing emergency kits out of that book I already showed you, the Temporal Preparedness Guide for the Utah area from the church. Hey, know what you eat and know what you need. Okay. I was gonna do this for the next class, but I think I'll just do it here. So this is a little activity we do in our area every now and then to help you figure out what a 3-month supply looks like for you. There's instructions on the activity here, and I'll just show them up on the board as well. Oh, I missed one of your pages. Sorry. So we start by brainstorming what meals you're eating. I remember, I've been doing preparedness so long that I remember when the church's food plan was a 1-year supply and a 2-year supply. And all of a sudden it went 3-month supply, and I'm like, that's not going to work. No one's gonna fall for that. We all fell for it. It works. What do you know? We often can get by with just a 3-month supply. So this is what you start with. There's a page in there where you can list like all the chicken things you eat, all the beef things you eat, all the non-meat things you eat, and you can start writing out those things along with side dishes and all of that. And then there's a calendar in there to start plugging those meals in. And there's even a place for you to write down a shopping list. This can all be done on your phone as well, but sometimes it's nice to have that paper right in front of you, especially in an emergency. So I came up with, in our family, we do 3 months. We have our spring menus, we have our summer menus, our fall menus, our winter menus. Growing up on a farm, we ate very seasonally. And so that was important to me, but how you eat is up to you. But this way you can kind of see, yeah, this is how many breakfasts I need, how many lunches, how many dinners. And you can get it plugged into your calendar. When you see that grocery list, you can start shopping ahead a little bit. You know what, I'm gonna do that meal 4 times in that 3 months, or my kids love it. So you can get the supplies for that and have that on your shelf ready to go. My neighbor does that by meal. Her food storage room is organized by meal. So she goes down, she has a little basket, she grabs the whole meal off the shelf and takes it upstairs. They supplement with fresh foods to that meal as side dishes more often, but the main meal is often things that she can store. That's how they choose to do it. These days, we have so many more options, but that is one way to do it.
Jodee, I have a question for you.
Yes,
So when we're talking about the 72 or the 96-hour kit, we ought to be thinking that needs to be portable
yes,
with the water that's needed for that. When we're talking about this 3-month supply, we can think stationary.
the 3 month supply would be something you would just store in your home. Now, that doesn't mean you couldn't grab enough of this to go if you knew you were gonna be out of the house for a while, or on your way out, grabbing a few of the supplies that you have. Going back to the 96-hour kit, when you talked about being able to move it, backpacks are nice, but not everybody is of an age. My mother couldn't carry a backpack very far with the supplies she needs in it, and sometimes younger children as well. So with our little kids, when they were too little to carry, we actually had them do the school backpacks on wheels, so that they could pull it along behind them. There are also very small travel suitcases, a little bit smaller even than like the overhead bins, that are on wheels that spin very nicely, that are a nice way to pull something along as well. And I've even seen them on Amazon that have backpack straps so that it can be picked up and carried when it needs to be carried. But if it can be pulled behind you, then that's more convenient. We've even done bigger things. We have a gorilla wagon that everyone can just throw their stuff in, and we can take turns pulling this wagon, our version of the hand cart, right? Modern day hand cart, that we can throw some things in. As a ward, we once every 2 years do an evacuation drill where we have everybody grab their kids and meet at the church, and we have activities for them to do there. There's prizes for whoever has the craziest, oldest thing in there. Yeah. So there's lots of fun things you can do, and even with your own families, you can practice at telling everybody, okay, go find your kit. Where is it? For Christmas this year, we rebuilt kits for all of our children because none of them live at home anymore. And they were shockingly excited about getting weird stuff for Christmas. So, and in fact, while I am here, my entire family is at the gun range because that's how weird it's meant to be. Okay, the Sharpie method. This is how I figured out my food storage needs. So I want to share this one with you. When I had 5 little kids and my husband traveled and I was trying to figure all of this out, how do I even know what I use for 3 months? And you know, I can plan all those meals, the kids just keep eating anyway. They don't go, oh, it's not time for that meal. They just eat. And so I've got a Sharpie pen and I wrote on top of a peanut butter jar the date that I opened it. And I just wanted to see how fast I went through it. And when that was empty, I made note of it in my little notes app on my phone, but you could write it on a piece of paper. We went through 1 jar of peanut butter in 2 weeks at our house. And they were the big Costco jars, by the way, because it's like peanut butter. Same thing here with the salsa, you put the date on it for when you open it, and you can calculate from there. If we use one of the big salsas, the giant salsas from Costco in a month, well then if I can get 12 of them and the expiration dates allows for 12 months of storing it, then I've got a whole year of salsa, if nothing else. And then you pat yourself on the back and think, salsa it is. And I hope you store corn and you can make your own chips. But the salsa, that helps you. So I've done this with toilet paper, with toothpaste, with laundry detergent. Anytime I want to know where's my money really going and how and where can I really pick up on things, especially if there's going to be a sale, like a case lot sale. Do you have local grocery stores here that do that? So a word of warning, they often put the thing that's going to expire first out where all the stuff is, and the stuff with the newer dates is on the shelves where it typically would be. So check those dates before you buy large amounts, but if I know that we only go through 3 cans of green beans in a month, because my kids don't really like them that much, then I can calculate from that what I need. And when I go to a case lot sale and see the price, I can look at the date and be like, this is good for 2 years. Gosh, I only need 24 cans and we're set for 2 years on that. And I can check it off my list. So checking those dates and the Sharpie method can really help you figure out, if you're just getting started, what you should be storing and how many you need. I think I've already told you that. Check your expiration dates. Find what works for your family. This is somewhat embarrassingly my food storage room. I painted the with the chalk paint because I wasn't always storing the same stuff. And so that way I can wipe it off and I can relabel it with just a piece of chalk. And so you can see we eat a lot of bacon, a lot of pickles, evidently, and peanut butter. You can see my massive amount of peanut butter there as well. So, and then over on the left side is once a year, I would go downstairs and I would count up what I had and what I was starting with. And then I would re-inventory at the end and see what I had used and needed to restock. That helps me know on a bigger scale how much I'm doing. It's super easy. It takes like 15 minutes to do this. How do I use it? Oh, listen, we're big mayonnaise people. Oh, well, we have some in the fridge too, but they're shelf stable here, so we're okay here. It is not open. It's good to go.
I know, but once you open it, it's massive, right?
It is. But I have 4 boys in their 20s, and so when I make mac salad and potato salad, it's half a jar. So it goes fast. We've never had it go bad. And it's kind of gross that we eat that much mayonnaise, but I have actually 4 more of them behind it, so that's just one.
Jodee, what are your yellow notes on the edges?
So that's where I added up what was there. So I have a date on here, my yearly total. We don't like tuna. We go through 8 cans of tuna in a year. So I bought enough to have 2 years worth based on the expiration date. So this is telling me what I started with and then what I ended with, what we never got around to using. If the food is getting close to expiring, we don't force ourselves to eat something that clearly we weren't that interested in after all. We donate it to the food bank before it expires and consider it insurance and we move on. It's also a great tax write-off. You can write off the cost of the food on taxes if you donate it. So don't eat roast food.
Oh, I just was gonna say, I talked to a lady that worked at Costco and she's like, you have to, like, some of the expiration dates, some say best buy. She said almost everything is good way past
Way past.
their date.
Yeah, you just wouldn't want to donate it after the best by date because they can't then pass it on to people to use. It just gets trashed. But in your own home and for your own personal use, if you open it and everything smells great, awesome. My husband swears he feeds stuff to the dog first if it's expired to see how everybody doesn't, but he doesn't think he does that. So this is your long term. So we talked about 3 months supply. This is going to be your long term, and these are the things that are 30 years plus, 30 years and 20 years. And this can be found on the Provident Living website for the church. And all of these items can be purchased pre-packaged at the canneries or Welfare Square, Bishop Storehouses kind of places. What we have found when we've looked into the prices is that it's all still cheaper at Sam's Club and Walmart than at the church. But if that's closer and easier to do, great, whatever works.
So for the beans, these are not prepared, these are the dried.
Dried.
Right.
Yeah, and we'll look at that here again. So this is a lot of words on one page, but essentially this is the quantity of food needed in that basic 2-year supply of grains and beans for one person. So you're looking at 25 pounds of wheat, rice, corn, and other grains, and 5 pounds of dried beans per person. Then you're gonna wanna add your other things in, your salts, your fats, your dried milks, your oils, all of those things, but those are the big ones. Now, I wouldn't do 25 pounds of wheat per person and not well because I'm gluten-free and it would kill me. But also because you're not gonna want just that one thing for everybody, right? 25 pounds could be a mix of things. It can be 10 pounds of wheat, it can be another 10 pounds of rice. It can be 5 pounds of popping corn, which can be ground to make great corn flour and cornmeal. Or it can be popped and eaten as well. So, and there's a lot of other grains out there. We really have had to find some of those being gluten-free. And in fact, the Coruscant Mills that's near here, if you go and talk to him about grains, he will fill you up with information about different grains that are out there and their different nutrients. So, just a little information, and storing vitamin C is important. Because if you lose fresh foods as an option for a time, you're going to need that vitamin C in a stored version. Okay, doing the math. I'm going to try and blow through all this really fast. So one adult would need 300 pounds of grain and 60 pounds of beans for 1 year. A family of 7 needs 2,100 pounds of grains and 420 pounds of beans. Sorry, Candace, that's your family.
Yes, actually, it's bigger.
But honestly, you don't want to store that much food.
Right, ultimately you want to be rotating it and using it. But
this is 30.
This is the 30 plus, so you've got a long time to get through that process. But, you know, I've got a basement full of wheat that none of us can eat anymore. So things happen and change along the way. But yeah, it takes up a lot of space and it's a lot of weight and you're not leaving the house with this. This stays at home and you rotate absolutely as much as you can.
What happened when the kids leave? When we were young married, I remember we didn't have 2 nickels throw together, but we had got our stuff. I remember throwing it all away after, and then we thought we gotta change it. So my wife did a wonderful job rotating. She got really good at it, all the little signs on the things and the notes and all that. There's a lot of work.
Once the
But
kids
then-
grow up, you have a lot more time to do that.
Well, the problem is you get back to throwing stuff away and because my kids are horrible at this. And so just get used to it. You're gonna throw stuff away.
Yep.
After they leave.
It'll happen.
Yeah.
It absolutely will. And like I said, we kind of refer to it as our food insurance instead of just our food storage. But I also have 3 kids moving across the country to grad school this year, and they're all taking a bucket of wheat and they're all taking a bucket of rice, and they're taking some of that with them because it's still got a good 10, 15 years on it at least. So, there are ways to disperse it even to your own kids as well. And then it is an absolute joy to get to start teaching them how to properly use these things too. It really is. Okay, this is where I tell you I am not into conspiracy theories or government pushback or whatever else. I'm a firm believer in staying positive, but these are some recent crop failures. Yes, well, I made this like 3 months ago, 4 months ago for my steak, and eggs weren't quite the issue they are now. But the eggs are definitely on there. So if you've got a friend with a freeze dryer, next time eggs aren't so pricey. Mhm. Yeah, avocados, they said that they were doing better this spring, and so I'm hopeful, and I left those off, but they're so expensive. Yeah, we have a Harmon's by our house, so when I walk in, I'm like, the prices, right? The prices on all of it. But in particular, there's real issues with chocolate and almonds right now. Tragic that chocolate and almonds would be hit. But those are some of the things that we did see, some massive crop failures in this past harvest. This is a fantastic talk, but we're out of time, so I'm going to skip that one. But it's one where Elder Bednar talks about he and his wife going to the closet and finding their 72-hour kids. It was during COVID, and he was afraid they'd unleash a whole new pandemic if they opened any of the food in it. It was so old, but it's also a really great talk. There's some great things.
What's the
in there.
reference on that topic? So when did, if we can't say it, can we just tell us where we can?
Yes, and I could have told you just a second. I'll tell you before we go. But it was Elder Bednar in 2020, and I think it was fall conference. All things to God are spiritual. And often people think, I need to be spiritually prepared, and you absolutely do. And I even hear people say, well, if you're spiritually ready, it doesn't matter. Everything else can just blow away like dust in the wind. I can't say that to my children. I can't say, hey, you're a good kid. It's okay if you starve to death in front of me. Can't do it. Can't say it to my neighbor. You've been a fantastic neighbor. You're spiritually strong. Sorry, your house burned down. I can't do it. And when people come to visit and talk and get help and support from you, whether they're your people or they're your neighbors or your community, I don't think you'll want to be the one saying that either. Hey, listen, I know you're struggling, but man, your testimony last month, you knocked it out of the park. This is spiritual. This is one of the things that we do, not just for ourselves, but we do it for our families and for our communities. And so I strongly encourage you to take whatever efforts you can to make sure that you're prepared. Those 5 things, if you dive in and try and do all 5 things right now, you're going to be overwhelmed. Pick one and move forward with it. I suggest you pick the planning first, because otherwise it's like throwing all the ingredients for a cake in the oven, but not having any of it mixed right, because you haven't made that plan. So make those plans, communicate those plans with your family, and then move forward with it. But take it one little thing at a time so that you don't overwhelm yourself. The most anxiety-inducing part of this is making the plan, because that's when you start what-ifing. Well, what if this, and what if this, and what if this, and it's easy to get in a cycle of that. So make sure you're paying attention to your own body and your own mind. And if you find yourself, you and your spouse getting snippy about it, or snapping at the kids, or just feeling overwhelmed and dark about it, this is hope. That's what you're doing. You're banking on hope. You're banking on surviving something or being able to help someone else survive something. This is a hopeful process. So if you lose that for a few minutes, step away, take a few deep breaths, be prayerful about your process. But I promise that you will be blessed, and your children and family and community will all be blessed through this process. And I say that in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.